Hey you guys, Brandon here. Well, nice to see y'all. So today I'm going to go ahead and be talking about assessment and how it relates to our practices as educators. So for me personally, when I think of the term assessment, there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, it's the process of evaluating our students using different means of examination. And specifically for me, the way that I like to define it, it's how we determine our students' progress towards learning goals. Now, as educators, there are two main types of assessment that we typically deal with. The first one is formative assessment, and the second one is summative. Now, when we talk about formative assessment, I like to call these progress checks that we as teachers do along the way in the course of a lesson. Now, with these formative assessments, for me personally, they come in very many different forms, and I use a variety of activities to conduct them. Some activities that I do for formative assessment, they include some worksheets that students will do and that I'll review later on. It also can include maybe observation during small group discussion, or also just paying attention to students like actions and answers and interactions when we're doing whole class discussion. Now, with these formative assessments, from my understanding, their main purpose is to help us as educators better adapt our lesson plans and help students work towards their learning goals. So, for example, like one way that we may do this is if I see that my students are struggling with the content that we're learning, one day I might change the lesson plan for the next day to recontextualize or provide more practice with the content that we're learning right now versus trying to introduce new content. So for me, that's what it means to conduct a formative assessment. So it's a progress check that we do along the way that helps us as teachers adapt and modify content to better suit our students' learning needs and help them work towards their learning goals. Now, when I think of summative assessment, it's also a form of examination and can use, sometimes similar tools or activities. But the main focus with summative assessment is to determine the overall learning and achievement of your students with learning goals. And the specific purpose of summative assessment is to basically for reporting purposes mostly. These are usually done at the end of the unit. Sorry, lost my train of thought there for a second. But yeah, these are usually done at the end of the unit with students in order to basically just kind of determine, what they've learned at the end of all this, and then also, to report that, in the form of whether that's like a report card, or so forth. Now, when it comes to my personal practice within the classroom and thinking about summative assessments, there's some things that I like about it and some ways that I would like to grow. I guess in a sense, the majority of the standards that I deal with in class, well, being an English teacher, some of the main ones that I deal with are the ones for reading literature, such as, identifying theme, analyzing character, and identifying evidence. Oh, sorry. It's kind of getting dark in here. Evidence within a text in order to support one's claims. In terms of other standards that I usually deal with, I also do some of the writing standards for informational writing, such as organizing and selecting information, developing an introduction and conclusion, and then also usually towards the end of the semester, I also integrate some of the other ones, such as for presentation of information, so speaking and listening standards. Now, what this looks like in terms of summative assessments in my class is that a lot of the initial summative assessments for the first couple units usually are writing based in the form of doing some kind of report. It really depends on the class that I'm teaching. That might be, writing a literary analysis essay. That might be doing a research report. It might be an annotated bibliography or something like that. And then in the later units, what I usually like to do is a multimedia project that the students use to present their findings. And with these ones, that's usually where I get more of the differentiated content for students to use. So I guess for me, the biggest area of growth that I would like to see is with differentiating my assessment styles that I use within the classroom. Because for the first couple units that I do, a lot of them are very similar in structure and don't really provide students with different options to express their learning. And I guess the main kind of challenge that I've had with kind of considering how to do that is with how we do grading, because for our school we need to use like the same rubric, so not just the same standards but like the same rubric for all the students and the assignments that they complete. So that kind of has made it hard for me to consider how to differentiate those assessments, especially in the earlier ones that are writing based. Because I feel like, if I wanted to have a kid do like an art project and, express their learning through that, or maybe, use some different form, I'm not really sure how I would, integrate this standard, or integrate or adapt the standards for that. So that's one area that, I would like to grow in. I would say personally, I guess maybe one strength of the summative assessments that I use right now is that I do integrate, a personalizable element and an inclusive element in it, in the sense that even though the students are doing kind of the same assessment across the board, that I usually let them choose the content that they want to analyze with that. So, if we're doing a unit on literature and we've read a couple of different short stories, I'll let them choose a short story that they want to analyze for their essay. If we're doing a research unit, then I'll let them choose, which topic that they want to research, so that there's some level of personalization. But yeah, so I guess I would say, kind of thinking about all that together, those are maybe some of the strengths of my summative assessments, and also some of the weaknesses that I would like to address. So I guess in summary, I would say personalization is definitely maybe one of the strengths that I have, but differentiation of content and assessment styles is something that I'd definitely like to work on. So if you have any tips or feedback, I'd love to hear from you. All right, thank you, and have a good day. Bye-bye.